So this weekend has been pretty eventful for Sonic fans because the Knuckles show came out, the show we were waiting so long for, and I've seen it, your friend's probably seen it, your mom's seen it, hell, your dog has probably seen it. And what did I think of it? It kinda sucked, not gonna lie. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of elements to this show that I genuinely like, but most of it is painfully mediocre, and that's where the show kind of has its shortcomings. As usual, we're going to start with the positives before getting into the negatives, but I'm just going to warn you, I have a lot of negatives this time, so just be prepared. Starting with, I think, what is the best part of this show is the action. My god, the fight choreography is great. The CGI is amazing as usual. Getting to see Knuckles use his powers and fight these random-ass villains in creative ways is really cool. They did a great job with it. I think it is the best part of the show, but the only issue with the action is that you barely get to see it. It is kind of sprinkled in the episodes, but it is a nice treat. Another positive I have for the show is the first 2 episodes I think are the best out of all of them. The show starts off really strong. The first episode's definitely the best out of all of them because it's the only one that's actually directed by Jeff Fowler. And, the second episode is decent, not quite as good as the first, but it's still a solid start. And then it only goes downhill from there. Another thing that I liked was the humor. While not every joke lands, especially in the later episodes, there were a lot of moments in the show where I actually did laugh, and I was like, wow, that was a good joke. That was well executed. Good job. You did a funny. And for my final positive, I thought that the 4th episode was actually pretty solid for what it was, for reasons that I will get into later. But those were all of my positives. Now it is time to brutally bash this show. Fairly critique the show. So I'm just gonna start off with one of my biggest gripes with this show, and that is the soundtrack. So, a lot of people online have been arguing whether or not it was because of a budgetary issue why Knuckles wasn't in this show as much as he's supposed to be. And, maybe it has to do with spending all of this money by using a licensed song every 2 seconds. I'm sorry, but most of the soundtrack of the show is licensed song after licensed song, and it is incredibly annoying. Nah, never mind all of the amazing Sonic songs, like, I don't know, every Knuckles theme from SA2 and SA1, no, fuck that. You want to hear I Need a Hero and all of these other songs that we've heard millions of times before in other movies. And I know this is an issue with the other Sonic movies, it's not exclusive to this show, the movies barely use the game's soundtrack either, but that's the thing, I want that to change. We live in a post-Mario movie world where that whole film's soundtrack was filled with great Mario music from the games. Sonic should be no different. I swear to God, if Movie Free does not have Live and Learn and instead just has some random ass fucking song by Bruno Mars at the end, I'm gonna be pissed. But I think it's time we address the Wade in the room. Now look, I actually like Wade, and I think he was a funny character. I like how he came in, said a joke, and leave. He didn't really intrude much in the first 2 films. But in this show, they dedicate so much plot to these boring-ass characters that are all involved in Wade's life, and I just don't care. And here's the thing, I think Wade is still a fun character in this show, but I don't give a fuck about characters like Pistol Goddamn Pete, or his mom, or God forbid, his annoying sister, arguably the worst character I've seen in any form of Sonic media in a long time. And that's the thing, it feels like it's trying to do the Sonic Movie 1 plot, where that movie was, again, very much a buddy cop road film, but with Sonic slapped onto it. But the difference there is that it felt more involved, and at least respected the source material enough to put more references and, have Sonic actually be treated like a proper character. And James Marsden as Tom works because he's so sincere and he's not playing it up for laughs. That's the thing. Wade is a comic relief, and when you pair him up with Knuckles, who admittedly was a comic relief in the second movie, but is still a really well-rounded and unique take on the character, it just doesn't work because it feels like it's Wade's show, not Knuckles' show. It has nothing to do with Knuckles half the time. It's all about this stupid fucking bowling tournament that I just don't care about. And this is the thing, Paramount wants these movies to be like the Avengers, big events, they want to set a bunch of stuff up, they want to have this cinematic universe grow, but this show barely sets anything up. The little tidbits that we even get are interesting, but they don't, like, do anything with them. They just mention them, and then they move on. For example, the two gun agents who... Admittedly, Kid Cudi was pretty funny, I can't lie. The British girl was kind of annoying, but she was okay, I guess. I don't know, I don't really care. But they talk about how Gun works and how it was connected to Robotnik originally, before Robotnik went crazy after being sent to the Mushroom Hill Zone, and that's why Gun has kind of become what it is now. And they kind of set up the fact that Gun is pretty scummy, just like in the games, which is all great stuff, but they barely build on it, and it pisses me off so much. Oh, and if you were looking for any setup to any other characters, like maybe Amy, Rouge, especially Shadow, then you basically get nothing. Well, you get one tiny little vague setup for Shadow at the very finale of the show during the bowling tournament. That's about it. Now, a while ago, I specifically mentioned episode 4 being pretty solid, and I actually really liked episode 4. Despite this being the episode that has the least amount of Knuckles in it, and it basically focuses on Wade the entire time. And the reason I like this episode so much is because it has the most amount of Sonic-related stuff in it, and it gives a lot of lore and exposition to Knuckles, but it does it in an incredibly strange way. To give, like, a synopsis, basically what happens is Wade gets kidnapped by some Joe Schmo character, like, bounty hunter dude who no one fucking cares about. He gets electrocuted, passes out, and he has a very strange dream sequence, which essentially explains Knuckles' backstory, but through Wade. And it's all done through this really goofy, but a little bit charming, I can't lie, I was kind of fucking with it. It's a rock musical, like a musical but with rock and puppets and a bunch of really weird jokes, including Iblis, which, you know, Sonic 06, think about it how you will, but Iblis is in the show, and essentially they explain that Knuckles had to fight Iblis to awaken the power within himself and overcome that challenge. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this is all cool, but why wasn't this what the show was based on? I would have rather watched Knuckles grow as a character, fight Iblis, and unlock the Flames of Disaster, rather than just a really strange dream sequence with Wade explaining this, which it also makes no sense of how Wade knows this. Like, it's just so dumb. But overall, it's a pretty solid episode despite it being incredibly strange and kind of a fever dream, to be honest. Another big critique I have is the villains themselves. Obviously, you have the two goofy gun agents going after Knuckles. They're fine, they're just dumb henchmen. They get the job done, you know, Kid Cudi is enjoyable. The British lady's kind of annoying and psychotic, but whatever. You know, they're decent henchmen. But then you have the Buyer, and the Buyer is such a nothing burger character in the grand scheme of things, because they set him up to be, you know, this, like, big important character because he was in the prequel comic and he has ties to Gun. He got fired, you know, he used to work for Robotnik, but they basically do nothing with him until the very end in, like, the last episode, and even then he doesn't really have much of a personality besides I'm evil grr, and he's just, I don't know, man, I just don't care about the Buyer. Like, this is why you need Robotnik sometimes, or better yet, Iblis would have been cool. I mean, I know he's just a demon, you might not be able to make him talk or have a personality, but, you know, Knuckles having to fight a big scary demon is much better than just this dude who has literally no personality and is not important at all in the grand scheme of things, like, clearly. But arguably the biggest sin that this show commits when it comes to its villains is they focus on a character called Pistol Pete, who is basically Wade's dad, who abandoned him at a TJ Maxx, and dude, I just don't care. This is the stupidest fucking character. Like, he's just so dumb. There's no point to focus on any of this. I would rather focus on Knuckles and Iblis and the Buyer. Look, if you're gonna introduce the Buyer, at least make him an interesting character. Make me care about this dude. But no, instead they focus on Pistol Pete, which makes no sense to me. I don't understand the thought process at all. Now you might be thinking, is the final fight between Knuckles and the Buyer at least cool to watch? And is it like a good final fight for the series? It's okay, I guess. I don't know, man. The reason I say it like that is because most of the fight, Knuckles is fucking benched. He's just passed out on the ground because he gets his power stolen by him, which Robotnik does to Sonic in the first movie. Yeah, I bet you're seeing the parallels already. It's kind of the same thing as the first movie, but with Knuckles and Wade this time. For some reason, Wade gets these gauntlets and he like chucks a bunch of bowling balls at the buyer's mech suit, which, by the way, that mech suit is really fucking cool. It is such a waste of a design. I actually really like the mech suit used in that fight scene. And it's just so dumb. It's so dumb because Knuckles, then he gets up, you know, and he gets the Flames of Disaster. The VFX are really cool, and you get to see Knuckles do his little drill move from the games, and it's really awesome. But it pretty much amounts to nothing because Wade basically took up half of the fight, and it's ridiculous. I will say, though, I do really like that Knuckles just straight up kills the buyer, and, like, nobody has talked about this. Dude straight up murks him. He throws a giant fucking, like, golden statue ball thingy at him and basically crushes him to death, and nobody mentions this. Wade doesn't mention it. The people who've watched this show barely talk about it. Like, he fucking killed that guy, and you know what? I like it. It was funny, I'm not gonna lie. Overall, would I call this a good Knuckles show? Hell no. Would I call this a good TV show in general? Not really. It's just fine. It's, you know, you could watch worse. But I truly do think Knuckles really deserved better. This show does not feel like a worthy Knuckles show. It just fails on so many aspects, and it had so much potential too. And I've seen a lot of Sonic fans say this is the worst piece of Sonic media to ever exist, and I've got to disagree. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure there's worse contestants for the absolute bottom of the barrel Sonic media. Like, we've got better options, guys. Like, this was not that bad. And if you like this show, you think it's great, you love it, I'm happy for you. I am not one of those people. This is how I feel about the show. I don't think it's the worst thing ever, but I don't think it was great. I think it could have been much, much better. And we know Paramount wants to do even more spin-offs. Like, there's a rumored Shadow spin-off going around, and it's like, look, if you want to do more spin-offs, Paramount, just for the love of God, let the people who made the movies write them. Don't bring back the writers of the Knuckles show. Let Jeff Fowler handle everything and actually give attention to the character instead of shoving in human character and focusing all on them, because I'm sorry, it's just not gonna work. It's stupid and I don't want to see it. But those are my opinions on the Knuckles series. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in whatever my next project is.
Look how they mess with my boy.